All right, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining today's session. It's going to be a very short session. I'll try as much as possible to ensure we leave here in the next 20 to 25 minutes so that we don't spend our Saturday evening on this activity. We can go on to other things we have planned. So my name is Celine Okoroma-Vincent. I'm basically the community manager for the Telegram group, Celine's ICSAN Journey. And it's my pleasure to have this session with you, particularly because I've realized that beyond just having members on the platform, there are quite a number of us that are probably struggling with really understanding how we can structure goals in terms of completing our ICSAN qualification. Most of us don't actually factor in plans for writing exams early enough so that we can start studying early enough and cover ground and be prepared for the exams. So I'm just going to be sharing the framework that helped me when I was writing corporate financial management in 2018. I wrote the exam twice, and then the third time I wrote it, I implemented some of these strategies I'll be sharing, and it really helped me to cover ground and then had a success on the third time trial. So I'm going to go through it quickly. It's a good thing that the results are out now. So most of us are certain about where we are retaking the exams. It's great that we're having this session at the start of the year so that we can actually see how we can implement them and structure patterns to get it right this time. So I'll just move on to the next slide so that we can make progress. So this is like an opening activity. I want us to, you don't have to complete it now. I'm going to send the slides over to the community platform. But I want us to just take a mental picture, like visualize yourself. We're in January 2024. By December 2024, where do you see yourself in terms of accomplishments? Now, I'm having this session particularly tied to ICSAN exams because that's the reason why most of us are connected to this platform. But you can even translate it to other goals of your profession and your career and even your personal life. Now, sometimes people may find it difficult to define what a goal is for them because they can't really see a picture of what they should set as a goal. But I always encourage people to start from a place of visualizing who you want to be by December 2024. So by December, do you envision that you would have completed all the ICSAN courses, or probably you would have completed corporate governance or corporate financial management, or you have even done all four? So if that is the picture that you envision for yourself on your ICSAN journey, or even your professional path, if you see yourself at a point where by December, I should have completed it, by December, I'm ready for induction. By December, I'm even filling my associate form. So if that is a picture you keep, if that is a picture that you have in your mind for your ICSAN journey, that's a great place to start because that gives you perspective on what you want to achieve by the end of the year. Okay, so once you have that vision in view, it helps you now to set out the steps that will help you to actualize that vision by December. Okay, so we're not in a, most of us wait till it's around June, we start to decide whether or not we want to write a particular ICSAN exam or whether or not we are even ready. But that's coming to that place of clarity and understanding what we want actually starts at the beginning of the year. That really helps you to put things in perspective and start to set goals and start to set systems that will ensure that you achieve what you have envisioned for yourself by December 2024. Okay, so now we'll move on. Just I'm trying to give very simple definitions so that we don't get it all clouded, because the issue of goals, a lot of people have so many definitions about goals being SMART and so many. So if we go into the vision of goals alone, you'd realize there's so much we can unbundle, but I'm trying as much as possible to keep it very simplistic so that we can understand and go with the flow of this session. So I just took a simple definition of the dictionary on what a goal is. So a goal is an object of a person's ambition or your efforts. So like we envisioned, your ambition is to complete ICSAN exams by December. Your ambition is to have completed at least 2 subjects Okay, so that is a goal for you as an ICSAN, someone who's on the path to completing ICSAN qualification. The second definition is also a goal is an idea. So it's an idea of the future or a desired result for that a person or a group of people envision. So you see where the visualization comes in, plan and commit to achieve. So it's one thing for you to envision. That's why we had the visualization exercise. Then you have to plan and make a commitment to achieve that which you envision, okay? So it starts from the place of envisioning. That was why we had that opening session. Then you plan and then you make a commitment to achieve that goal that you have set for yourself, which is either completing all your exams or writing at least 2 or 1, whichever is the goal that you want to set at the beginning of this year right now. So now you may be wondering, why are goals important? Why do I really have to take a decision right now about what I want to do in terms of my ICSAN journey? It's important because look at this excellent definition by a very famous jurist. You have L. Nightingale. He said, people with goals succeed because they know where they are going. This is a very apt definition. Why? Because if you already understand by now that you want to complete corporate governance or corporate financial management, you know where you are going. You already have an idea of what you want to accomplish. So there's no way you would not set plans in motion to achieve it. Unlike sometime, most of us prior to now, before this session, we probably just wait and try and do I do CFM? Do I do CS? Which one? And then we keep dilly-dallying until we're in April, when it's deadline for registering for exams. And by April, you have not even started studying for anyone. And then you find yourself rushing, okay, let it be that I registered for one. You register, and then you realize that time is so short for you to even prepare. But then because you've paid, you decide that, okay, let me just write. And then at the end of the day, you know the results. It wouldn't be fair. So people with goals succeed because they know exactly where they are going. Now, goals are also dreams with deadlines. So deadlines in the sense that I want to complete corporate governance by June. So you know that by June, you want to be done with writing the exam and you have even completed it. God willing, you pass. So that is a deadline, okay? Unlike when you are not certain, okay, should I write it in June or December? And then by June, the deadline passed. You didn't even set any goal at all. You realize that the June exam passes by December, so many other life activities come up, and then you realize that you're unable to even focus on understanding what you need to do in terms of the particular exam you want to write. Now, why is it important to set these goals when it comes to your ICSAN exams or ICSAN qualification? It's important because it actually gives you direction. It actually puts you in the driver's seat of your life. It actually puts you in a point where you realize that, look, I have to be serious about setting a path for myself on what I want to achieve with my ICSAN journey. I've met people who registered for ICSAN. They became student members even before I started writing exams. Until today, they have not even attempted to complete even 2. Why? Because they haven't actually put themselves in a place where they take responsibility, personal responsibility for driving the agenda of completing their ICSAN qualification. So setting a goal for yourself for completing your ICSAN qualification actually puts you in the driver's seat, okay? It gives you that sense of responsibility. I've put myself up to this task. I have to accomplish it. And then you begin to set the plans in motion. So it's so important to actually take a step back and then ensure that we set a goal as we are planning for the year. We set goals that really cover our ICSAN qualification journey so that we don't tarry too long trying to, qualify, and then we lose steam and we lose out like the rest of the others who are falling off the bandwagon. So we'll move on now to the steps on what you need to do for setting your goals as regards your ICSAN journey. The first thing is clarity. Why is clarity important? Clarity is important because you have to know exactly what you want. What do you want? You want to become a chartered secretary, okay? What do you want? You have been seeing people who probably you have been seeing newspaper publications of annual general meetings. I'm just sharing personally. It's one of the things that motivated me when I see newspaper publications where there is an AGM notice And then it's always signed by the company secretary of the company. And it always I always envision that one day it will be my name on a newspaper publication, because by the time I qualify and I'm a company secretary of a listed company, I'll be able to have a newspaper publication carrying my name with an AGM notice. So you have to have clarity on what you want. So having clarity of what you want also transcends to knowing exactly the courses you want to write part-time. I have people sending me messages and asking me, okay, should I write CFM first or should I write CA first? I hear that if you write CFM last, it's usually better, in that haven't tackled the ones that are more theory, you may be in a better mind frame to do CFM. I've met people who did CFM on the first attempt, first paper, first attempt, and they scaled through. But you have to have understanding, clarity on what you want. And when you have that understanding, you have to define it. Okay, we're going to get to a point where you actually understand how you define what you want and which of the courses to select per time. But the place of clarity actually helps you to come to a point where you make up your mind. You make up your mind. I want to write XYZ course in June, and by December, I register for the remaining 2. So once you know exactly what you want, you define it clearly, you write it down. Another thing that will also help you with firming up your clarity is your reason. What is your why? Why do you even want to be a chartered secretary? Is it because it's the next best qualification after your first degree? Or is it something you have always had as a goal for yourself? Probably you grew up in a community where maybe your family member, somebody you know, your uncle, your relative, or maybe you're looking for a job change and ICSAN qualification appears to be strategic for you to move into a new industry or a new job role that you have interest in. This reason is important. Why? Because it is a motivation that will keep you going when those down times of maybe failing a course or 2 set in, and then you don't get discouraged. Your why, the reason why you even want to get qualified as a chartered secretary, would be the driving force to keep going, even when possibly maybe there's a deadline. It appears that by April, you're not even ready. But then you have to push yourself to give in more hours to studying because your why is strong. The reason why you actually want to be a chartered secretary is strong. So you have to sit down in a place of really understanding, because most people have realized who drop off the way are people that they don't really have a strong reason why they want to be chartered secretary. They just want to write ACIS after their name. That's the only reason. So if you don't have a strong reason, where it's a strong motivator, you'd realize that when it gets to a point where it becomes tough, you will just easily resign and then move on to some other things, okay? So you have to have clarity and know the reason, okay? So that reason helps you to come to a place of understanding that this is what I want to do. So that motivation has to be strong so that it can keep you going in the blue days. Now, after you have that clarity and reason, you have to write it down. Writing it down is important because that, you know, our minds are so busy and ideas are things that are fleeting. There's some things you may think about and decide in your mind. If you don't write it down, you wouldn't even realize that you actually took that decision. But when you write it down, it helps you to even understand it more clearly. It helps you, even if when you write it down, have you come across things that you wrote maybe 3 years ago? You didn't even realize that you had that thought process and that you had taken a decision on that thing that time. But because you wrote it down, when you come across that thing you wrote, it refreshes your memory on that goal or that decision. So writing it down helps you to really put it in perspective. It actually brings it to life in that you can see it clearly that I have given myself a responsibility that I want to write corporate governance and corporate financial management by June. So every day you see it, it becomes fresh in your mind. It now gives you that responsibility that, oh, I have taken this decision, therefore I have to start to make plans to ensure that I actualize it. So writing it down is important so that you don't lose it in the sea of memories or in the sea of other decisions that may be pressing in your mind. Okay, so this is the simple framework for setting that goal, understanding what you need to do in terms of clarity on which course to write in June and December. And this is a great time to have this sit-down conversation with yourself and set in motion what you need to achieve. Now, after you've had that clarity, you've understood your reason, and you have written it down, this is the real gist, how you get to accomplish it. Most times, even with our personal and our professional goals, you realize that even though we have vision boards and we write down our goals, and we decide that we're going to do X, Y, Z. We just put it in that paper and we toss it in the corner, and we never do anything. And by December, we realize that we have not accomplished anything. Now, what we have before us is the simple framework that I implemented, and which I also implement in my personal life, which helps me to ensure that any goal that I set, I put it in motion by ensuring that this list framework you see, which I'm going to explain, is actually what helps me to work towards my goals daily. So I'm tying this conversation strictly to our ICSAN professional journey. Now, after you have defined which exams you want to write, okay, so you have taken, let's work with corporate governance, because I worked this out using corporate governance as a model. So you've decided that you want to write corporate governance in June. Now you have to sit with yourself and define again, what daily action steps do you need to take to ensure that you are ready to write corporate governance by June? So what do you need to do on a daily basis? This is not a weekly basis, particularly for people that prefer to do self-study. It is a consistent daily thing, a daily goal you have to set. Okay, so let's work with corporate governance. If you decided you want to do corporate governance, you sit with yourself, take the curriculum, and you define how many hours a day am I going to commit to reading corporate governance per day, starting from the day you define those goals. How many hours by your capacity, by your work schedule, by the free time you may have in how busy your life is. And you cannot commit anything less than 1 hour. It has to be 1 hour or more to be able to sufficiently cover ground. So you have to break it down to daily action steps. So first define, can I comfortably do 1 hour? Can I comfortably do 2 hours? Can I do 3 hours? Can I do 4 hours? Can I do midnight? Okay, so define it. Look at your life. Look at how flexible your time is and fit in exactly when you can slot daily routines that ensure that you are preparing daily for writing corporate governance. Okay, starting from today. Now, once you have defined it, so while working with corporate governance, I've decided, now I'm the person in perspective, I've decided that I'm going to be doing 2 hours of studies every day. Now, the next thing you have to do is to take daily action steps. So beyond just defining what you need to do daily, you actually have to do it. So you have to intentionally block out time daily. It is it's something you have to take on. And the truth is, sometimes when you started at the beginning, it may seem burdensome, but it is proven scientifically that when you do something consistently for 30 days, it becomes a habit. So what you need to do is to pull yourself through consistently for 1 month. 30 days is 1 month. Once you can pull through that window of liturgy and reading every day for 2 hours, you realize that by the time you're getting into the 2nd and the 3rd month, it becomes routine. It becomes a habit. You no longer struggle to create time because your body has now adapted to having that window of studying every day. Okay? So you have to intentionally block out that time to take those mini action steps daily. Another thing that also helps, we need to understand is everybody has something that is called an energy profile. So an energy profile is a window of time in a day where you are most active, where you assimilate the most, when you can get tasks done, when you are not distracted, when you are high in energy. Some people are nocturnal, okay? So once it's getting to 9 p.m. to 12 midnight, they realize that the energy level is high. Their mental assimilation is quite high. So if you can understand your energy profile, you know when you are most active. So people are morning people. Once it's 8 o'clock in the morning, they are very active, they are ready, they are supercharged. Once from maybe 8 o'clock to like 12. But one thing you should understand is typically it is a window of 3 hours. Your energy profile is most active in the window of 3 hours. So you need to look through your life, sit down and do a reflection about your life. Some of us probably already know, because if you're an adult and you've been working for a while, you probably already know the time frame where you are most active. So what I would advise now is leverage on that time to schedule this daily exercise of studying for corporate governance. Okay, so continuing using myself as the person in question, my energy profile is nocturnal. Once it's 12 midnight to around 3 a.m., I'm always active. That's the time I get a lot of work done because the atmosphere is a bit quiet. So what I will do intentionally is to ensure that within that time frame, I block out 2 hours consistently every day to study for corporate governance. Okay? So once you have that on the lock, you'd realize that you are studying for corporate governance at a time when you are at peak performance, assimilation is higher, you'd realize that that interest will grow and you would understand and follow that pattern for the next 3 months. Because from January to around June, when the exams would be scheduled, you have minimum of 4 to 5 months. So that is sufficient time to actually cover the syllabus if you are doing self-study. Or if you're also attending lectures, you shouldn't also rely on what you are taught at the lecture center. You also need to make out time to study. Because most of us fall for that trap of, oh, I'm attending lectures. You only look at your books when you go for lectures. After that, you just toss it at the corner. It doesn't really help because you realize that you are struggling to remember what you were taught the last time if you are not constantly engaging with the notes outside the lecture time. Okay? So taking daily action steps is important because you realize that your goal is to be ready for your exams by June. But if you are doing these steps daily, naturally, you would be prepared for the exams by June if you are consistent. If you structure, I'm going to show us how you structure out your reading using the syllabus as a guide, okay? So once you do this intentionally, daily, maximizing your energy profile and leveraging on the time when you are most active in terms of assimilation, you are on track to meeting that goal of completing that exam by June or December, whichever time you set. Now, the final thing is being consistent. Consistency is the secret sauce. You just have to be consistent. You just have to be intentional because remember, like we said, when you set a goal, you put yourself in a place of responsibility. The goal will not work itself out. You will do the work. So consistency is the secret sauce. You just have to be consistent, put in the work daily. Even some days when you don't feel like it, you have to, you don't even need motivation. The motivation should be that why, the reason why you want to become a charter secretary, why you want to complete your ICSAN exams. That should be the motivation in those low days when you don't feel like studying. And like I explained, once you do it consistently for 30 days and becomes a habit, you won't struggle anymore, okay? You won't struggle to create time to study because it has now become naturally part of you. So consistency till the point where your body system has acclimatized to studying every day. You just have to be consistent until you make studying every day a habit, okay? All right. So now let's move to, so this is the application of all that I have been explaining. I'm going to pause on sharing this slide and show you a Word document that I created that sort of puts all of this in perspective. And this is something I would advise you all to also do so that you can practicalize all that we are explaining. Let me just stop sharing and pull up the Word document so we can see practically how you can set out the goal and break down your daily mini action steps and set a schedule for actually taking action. Okay, just give me a second. Let me pull it up. All right. Okay. Okay, so confirm that you can see my screen. Hello, do I still have people here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. So what we have before us is, okay, thank you. What we have before us is the application. So this, I've set out a table on how you can progress from beyond defining the goal to taking it to a point of, let me just zoom it in a little. Okay. All right. So my goal is to pass corporate governance in June 2024 exam diet. Now, if I'm doing self-study, what I will do is first, I believe we all have the ICSAN syllabus, the 2022 ICSAN syllabus. If you're on the platform, the Telegram platform, you'll be able to locate it there. So you have to sit with that syllabus and look at the entire syllabus, look at the topics, okay? Look at all the subtopics and all the sub-branches. So once you have a grasp of the entire course content, you would ask yourself, if I am to do self-study, realistically, how many hours a day can I study to cover this entire syllabus? Okay. So you have that conversation with yourself realistically, depending on your work schedule, depending on your ability to assimilate. And then if you've also studied this course before and probably you did not pass, I believe you already have built residual knowledge. So you wouldn't have to start from scratch in that you are just understanding the concepts. It will be like refreshing. So you can actually work at a faster pace if you have, covered the syllabus before and you're doing a receipt. Okay. So once you have a full grasp of that, for people that are self-studying, if you want to also attend lectures, most people who have done self-study once or twice and they're still struggling with passing the exams, I always advise to find a lecture center, because there's sometimes that you may not really be understanding the concepts the way the examiners want you to answer them. So it's important that you are at a lecture center where you are taught the way you are expected to have that knowledge. It's one thing for you to understand it theoretically. It's another thing for you to understand it in the way that you are required to know it and express it during exams. So you need to understand what the examiners expect. And you cannot have that knowledge unless you are probably in the community at a lecture center where you actually taught the way the examiners expect you to have knowledge of corporate governance, okay? So I always advise, if you read corporate governance once or twice and you still were unable to pass it, maybe you could try a lecture center, because that's what worked for me too. When I wrote CFM, the first and second time I did self-study, but the third time I got a lecture center and then it was a lot better. Now, the reason why I would also recommend a lecture center is that you can leverage on the student community. Because you see, when you are working on a journey alone, there are times where you can need reference points, people you can ask questions. If you're doing self-study, you may not have access to that community to, people who also don't understand some of the concepts you are struggling with. You can ask, somebody may explain to you. You have that accountability within a group setting that also encourages you to keep studying. Okay, so once you have had that conversation with yourself, you have set out the curriculum, you have been able to make an assessment of how many hours a day you can commit to studying, then you now look at your calendar, okay, your daily planner, and block out time. Not just block out any time, block out the time within your peak energy performance level, that time frame we're speaking about. If it's 1 hour, you can study every day, or 2 hours or 3 hours. Ensure that you are locating that time within that your energy profile peak time so that you can maximize the time to cover ground. So now, after you've defined your mini action steps, you now set it out. So if you look at the last column, what I've done there is I took corporate governance as the syllabus and I declared it out. So you see, for corporate governance, it actually has 5 main topics. But underneath those 5 main topics, you have 9 subtopics. And underneath those 9 subtopics, you have 103 mini topics. So these mini topics have bullet point topics under each of those 9 subtopics underneath the 5 main topics. So if you look at the curriculum, you may think that corporate governance, the topics are not so many. But then the mini topics are quite expansive. And if you take it for granted that, oh, I can cover it, you realize that it will become a struggle, okay? So if you are doing self-study, another thing you need to understand is ensure that you are getting resource materials that actually cover the field of the syllabus. Because sometimes some people may get resource materials that they study, but there are some areas of the curriculum that are not in those resource materials. And you realize that when you get to the exam hall, you find a question that you didn't even read, and you didn't realize that it's even part of the syllabus because you only studied one resource material that covered the basic part you felt was sufficient to prepare for the exams, okay? So if you're getting resource materials, ensure that you are looking at it alongside the curriculum to ensure that it covers the field and you are comfortable that as you're reading this, it should be able to cover you. But if you're at a lecture center, typically they would have lecture notes and you'll be taught based on the curriculum guidelines. So you shouldn't have an issue with that. So once you have defined the scope of the curriculum based on the particular course you want to write per time, and you've checked the study materials, then you set out the period within which you want to study per day. So if it is 1 hour, you locate your time, 1 hour at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. every day from today. Once it's time, you set out everything you are doing deliberately. If you even have a timer on your phone, that's what I do. I intentionally put a timer on my phone and I set my phone far so that I can only get up to go and put off the timer when the alarm goes off. So if I set 2 hours that I want to study, I set it in probably, for instance, if I'm trying to study in the midnight. So I can be in the living room on the dining table studying, and I put the timer somewhere in the hallway. So I'm not close to my phone at all. And it's only when I hear the timer go off, I would get up to go and put it up. Then I know that I've actually done 2 hours studying. Okay, so you can put a framework like that to ensure that you are just focused, you don't have any distractions at all, and you keep it an unbreakable routine consistently until it becomes a habit, and then you would now cover ground in its assimilation. Because the truth is, if you're able to actually study the curriculum, study the syllabus from end to end, there's no way you wouldn't be able to at least provide an answer that would be sufficient for the examiner to award you marks that you would pass, okay? Provided you are properly guided. Sometimes too, when you finish writing, you cover the curriculum back to back, you try past questions as well. How well are you able to answer past questions? That will also give you a hint on how much you have studied and how well you have assimilated what you have studied. Because people just study and they don't even treat past questions. You realize that you may study and you try past questions and you're still failing. It means that you haven't really understood that subject area. You go back and you try and until you grasp it, okay? So then, like I've already explained, you have to ensure that you are committed to doing it for at least 30 days until it becomes a habit. So once it becomes a habit, you would struggle less and the consistency will be there over time, and then it will become part of you, okay? Then, as you're also in the community, if you're in a lecture center or you are in a WhatsApp group, whichever one, ensure that you're also engaging with people. Find out people that are also writing the exams you are reading. You can ask questions. Oh, I don't understand this. Can anybody explain this? What resources are you using? That way it will also help, because I suffered a lot. That's why I do some of the things I do. When I was studying, when I was preparing for my ICSAN exams, I was pretty on my own. I didn't know anybody. There were no communities. There was nobody to ask anything. But I realized that when I get to the lecture hall, see a room full of people, and I'll be wondering, where did all these people materialize from? All this while I was studying, I thought I was the only one writing these exams. But when I come to the hall, I can see like 20 people, and I keep wondering, so where did they come from? And I'm just working solo and wondering, oh, am I the only one struggling with this exam and all? So you have to leverage on the communities that you are in and engage, so that anytime where you are lost, you can, reach out to people that are also writing the exams with you, and then ensure that you ask questions, seek help, and then you maintain that motivation you need so that the vision you have for yourself by December 2024 becomes a reality if you intentionally put this framework in place. So that's the practical. I have just set it out so that we can get a glimpse of all that I've been explaining. It puts it more in perspective. That's why we say writing it down is important. As I've written it down this way, you can see how practical it is. It will be easier for us to implement and also structure it in a way that we can execute and then see the results that we anticipate. So I'm going to stop sharing this slide and go back to our main slide that we were on before now. Okay, so we're done with this. Let me move to the next one. Okay, now we've done this. I'm just going to the very last slide now. Okay, so some bonus tips. So the bonus tips I would recommend is to also vocalize it. Okay, so when you have that goal and you say to yourself, by June, I want to have been done with corporate governance and corporate financial management, you have to keep speaking it. because vocalizing it gives life to the goal. It also keeps you in reminder of what you have set for yourself as a goal. It will also prompt you that, okay, I have said I'm going to complete corporate governance by June. It will also remind you that you have to do your daily tasks. So what I would recommend for you to always have that goal in view. You can type it on your phone. Use that as a screensaver. You can even set timers in your phone, okay? That is tied to when you want to, you're expected. Maybe if it's an hour to when you have set the window for studying, you just put a timer that pops up with that goal of, oh, by June 2023, I should have been done with CG and CFM. So if that timer comes up, notification that reminds you that in the next 1 hour you should be studying, then you have the description for that timer. Is that your goal? That gives you in perspective. It also refreshes your mind. As you vocalize it, it becomes a reality, becomes part of you. The other thing I would also recommend is for you to be accountable. Tell people about what you are doing, because that way people would keep reminding you. Accountability would realize typically there's a 72% chance of you making your goals possible if you hold yourself accountable to someone. So it could be your family member, it could be your colleagues, it could be also other people that are on the ICSAN journey with you. You can hold each other accountable. So if probably for those of us that are on this call, you can decide, okay, I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to be studying for 2 hours every day. Can you remind me and I remind you, and we both hold ourselves accountable for studying at this time daily. So that way you realize that you know you cannot give a negative feedback that you haven't studied today. So you actually make room to ensure that you study so that you can confidently be accountable to the person that, yes, I've covered my study time for today. Now, the other thing is you have to have a bias for action. You have to banish procrastination by all means, because this thing will not work itself. You have to do the work. You have to do the studying. You have to do the preparation. So anything about procrastination, delay, you have to have a bias for taking action. That is the only thing that will make consistency work, so that you don't find yourself in a point where by April, you realize you have not even covered the first topic in corporate governance and you're planning to write the exam by June. It's not realistic. But if you start now to set this framework in place and you are following it consistently, you realize that it will be less burdensome. Effortlessly, before you get to April, you have even done 3/4 of the syllabus. By April, you're probably even able to start practicing past questions. So you are even covering the syllabus without even trying, because you have made it a daily routine. Unlike when most of us, we want to wait till it's 1 month to the exam, you now do crash reading, and then you are now exhausted, and there are so many life events happening around you. You cannot deal. At some point, you will just give up and say, oh, this thing is not for me. I can't come and kill myself. Do you understand? But if you are doing it daily, the burden is lesser in that you are just taking it bit by bit and you are making progress continuously. So a bias for action is very, very important. Then you review your goals as well. So if you're done by June, you've written CFM and you still have CG to write by December. So you reframe the goal again. You start all over, and then you set a framework for getting for completing maybe CFM or CG by December again. So you keep reviewing. Reviewing is also important because so that you know where you are. So if by June you realize that you are attempting past questions and you're still struggling to answer the past questions, you have to go back and check. Where have I missed it? Maybe I did not pay attention to reading this particular area. Maybe the area, for example, could be board dynamics. You're still struggling to understand board dynamics. You go to that area. So you would review your goal in that you concentrate more time on studying board dynamics and less time on the ones that you have now fully grasped. So reviewing your goal is important so that you can now reallocate your time in such a way that you're able to deepen your knowledge of the areas that you are struggling. So reviewing the goals is important so that you can actually gauge where you are, okay? Sometimes too, you can review the goal is important alongside your syllabus. You may not know that for corporate governance, for instance, that has subtopics. You may be in a subtopic area under one course, and then time is actually fast spent. But if you keep reviewing your goals, realize that, oh, I need to make up speed. Maybe instead of 1 hour that you initially set, you can increase it to 3 hours so that you can cover ground and you're not struggling by April to still cover syllabus when you should be attempting past questions. So Reviewing the goal is important so that you can actually realistically tell yourself, okay, this is where I am, and this is what I need to do to cover ground and work more speedily. Okay, so I just have some famous quotes about goals. Ted Turner said, you should set goals beyond your reach so you always have something to live for. So I know a lady, her name is, I can't remember her name right now, but she did a recording that's on our platform. So this is interesting because this quote actually described her situation. She told herself that she wanted to, in 2019, she set a goal to complete all her ICSAN exams by that year. So 2019 came and went, and she didn't even start anyone. By 2020, she carried over the goal. And then what she did was, by the first half of 2020, she started to do the Institute of Chartered Institute of Taxation Nigeria exams. So that's what she did from January to around June. Then she realized that, oh my God, it's like the year is going to end again, and I've not done ICSAN qualification at all, and December will meet me. So guess what she did? She decided that she was going to register for all 4 ICSAN exams in December. So she set a goal that was almost beyond her reach. It was unbelievable, and she was working full time. It's not as if she wasn't doing anything. She was working full time in Lagos. She would sit in traffic and she would be studying. So she set a goal that was almost going to overwhelm her. She said even by April, when she had to register, she was asking herself, should I register for all 4? I should just respect myself and do only 2 so that I don't come and bite more than I can chew. But she said, no, it's a goal I have set and I will do it. And guess what? She actually registered for all 4 and she passed all 4 with a distinction in 1. Can you beat that? So she actually set a goal that she pushed herself, and pushing herself beyond limits, she actually achieved that goal. So when I heard her story, I had to interview her, and we did like an interview where she shared some of the tips that help her to accomplish that goal. The recording is on our YouTube channel. She also did a written version of that session where she shared some of those tips. So setting large goals is important because it actually forces you to become the person you've never become. So you'd have to do things you have never done before to be able to accomplish big goals. Okay, so if you're used to studying for only 30 minutes, you have to force yourself to study for 2 hours, because it is only when you outperform your last performance that is what will actually break the mold to achieve greater things. Okay, so setting goals bigger than you, beyond your reach, is something that actually gives you a reason to live for achieving those goals. Then Confucius says, when it is obvious that the goal cannot be reached, don't adjust the goal, adjust the action steps. This is interesting because this comes down to what we're just talking about, setting framework. So if you have gotten to the point where you're in April and you realize that, oh, I'm still studying, oh, I have not covered the syllables, don't adjust your goal to say, okay, let me not write this CG in June again. Let me write it in December. What you need to do is now adjust your action steps. If you were studying for only 1 hour, keep days in a week where you actually stay up all night and study. I mean, we went to universities in Nigeria, I believe some of us, we used to study all night those days. So, and it's still there. It's just that we have sort of felt that, oh, we have lost steam. If you put your mind that, okay, I need to increase the action steps, I actually need to cover ground. It is possible. You have to convince your mind, your body will adjust. That's just the reality. It is possible, but you have to make up your mind that I want to stay up and study and cover up ground. And you'll be shocked that the first day you try it, you will do it, and then you can do it. And before you know it, once you adjust this action step, the goal is still possible at the time frame, even though you may feel that, okay, it's not possible. But once you adjust the action steps and you push yourself even further, it is possible. So one final quote, our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There's no other route to success. There's no other way. Once you set the goal and you have set this framework, you have to act vigorously. It's not magic. It's not there's no magic, because the only way you can know is when you learn. And when you learn and study intentionally, it becomes part of you, and you can meet the exams more confidently and pass the next time around. Okay, so I'm just going to pause at this point. I've been speaking all this while. I'm going to let us just check that we are following. If you have questions and any interactions, you can speak at this point. If you have any concerns about your studying pattern, if you have any, you want clarity on which courses to attempt, or you have been struggling with a particular course and you just want to share a little bit to, you know, cross-pollinate ideas. At this point, I would open the floor for us to make comments and, you know, interact basically. So I'm done with the presentation. This is the last bit. This is where 9 minutes away from 9 p.m. So I'm just going to let us have that interaction for a little bit and then I'll close the session. Thank you. If you want to speak, you can just unmute and speak. Or if you want to write it in the chat box, I can read it from this end. So I'm going to give like 5 minutes. This is 8:52. By 8:55, if I don't get any comments, I would conclude and then close the meeting. All right.
Hi, good. For this, I think what I needed to hear, I've heard it. Because I used to think that it is quite impossible to write the whole 4 exams at once. But I'm motivated this evening and I'll work on it seriously. I'll do all my possible best. Because I think one major issue I had, because last year I attempted to write CS, but I didn't get the actual material I was supposed to work with. I was just treating past questions.
Okay.
And I had limited, so I didn't pass it, but I don't want to be discouraged at all. So I was able to get the text material that I can work with. So and another thing I think affected me then was I was all alone by myself. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to relate with. So it was on the exam day that I saw that so people are really much like this, that they are really writing this exam. I was so surprised to meet a lot of people writing the exam. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Ope, right? It's Ope that spoke, right?
Yes, Opemipo.
Opemipo. Okay, thank you. Exactly. We actually share the same experience. The same thing with me. When I was writing, I didn't know anybody. And I did self-study for the 3 exams for corporate governance, corporate administration, and CS. I did self-study. So I didn't know any lecture centers, not because I wanted to do self-study, but because where I was working at the time, I was working on Saturdays at well. So I didn't even have time. Even if I had the luxury of going to a study center, I couldn't, there was no time. So I did self-study for the 3, but God so kind at each attempt, I passed them. Then until I got to CFM, where it was obvious that I just needed to locate a study center where I could really understand the concepts, okay, some of the calculations, the formulas. And then once I got the grasp, when I started attending the lecture center. So it was just in January like this, I made up my mind that you see this June 2017, June 2017, I must pass CFN and be done with it. So by January, I sat down, I set up this framework. Immediately the studies, because as the exams are out now, by first week of February, all the study centers will resume operation. So by February, I just located the nearest study center where I made inquiries and they said, oh, the CFM lecturer in this particular study center is very good because she breaks it down and X, Y, Z. I said, okay, I'm going to go to that particular study center. I went, I registered, I sat down and then learned it. And the CFM lecturer was very good in that she did not, most people teach CFM like you know it, okay? But she taught us like we were in elementary school. We don't know anything about maths. She taught us like we were so daft. So we understood it from the foundation to down to board mass. She taught us like we were in primary school. So that way we now had a foundational understanding of CFM. That was the only way. Prior to then, I had been reading it surface. Okay, what I used to tell myself then was, they say CFM is 40% theory and 60% calculation. So if I read my theory very well, there's no way I will not pass 40% and pass. But that was a bloody lie. Every time I read theory and I did not concentrate on calculations, I failed woefully. But by the time I actually went to study center where they helped me to, because at the end of the day, think about it realistically. You are going to be a company secretary. You'll be reading financial statements. You need this knowledge, not just for passing exams. You need this knowledge for understanding, taking board decisions, financing decisions, dividend decisions. You have to understand your numbers. So it's not even about writing on that, just knowing it to pass exams. When you are in a boardroom, when you are asked to take decisions on financial information, you need to understand ratio analysis. You need to understand how these things work. So if you don't understand it, it will be obvious that you are lacking in knowledge in that area when they ask certain questions and you're able to give concrete feedback. Okay, so it is important that we actually know these things. So once I had that exposure and I was able to understand it foundationally, by the time I wrote it in that June of 2017, I passed, and it was history. So, but it was setting this framework out beyond just attending lectures. I was studying every day, at least a minimum of 1 hour. I'll just sit down, attempt the calculations, every day. Then I attend lectures. So I realized that when I did the self-study, by the time I get to the lecture center by Saturday, I've not forgotten what I was taught, because this thing they flow sequentially. If you don't understand the step up to this point, and then you internalize it, when they move on to the next step, you'll be lost, because what you learned last week is what you need to understand this week's lectures. Okay, but when I kept reading them, even though I was attending lectures, I kept reading it every single day. The understanding, the knowledge internalized, and then I kept building on it. And by the time we wrote the exam, we even had a mock exam that I did so well. So I was confident that this time around, there's no way I will not pass. And that was it. So we shouldn't undermine our capacity. There's a lot we can actually achieve, but you need to push yourself. You need to tell yourself that I can do it, and you can do it. But just that most times, natural circumstances around ourselves, we just, I can't do it because of XYZ. But if you tell your mind that I want to do this thing, your body will make room for it to be possible. So that's just it. Thank you, Opemiko, for sharing.
Thank you so much. I think another issue I'm having, because presently I'm based in Osun State and there's no study center here at all. The nearest study center is Ibadan.
Okay.
So I don't know, but yes.
Do you fare well with virtual lectures?
Yes, okay.
Do you fare well? Because I
For that sake,
some
yes, because I know that one out. Okay, let me hear you.
No, I'm saying that some study centers have virtual lectures. So if you're someone who doesn't mind, you're able to learn virtually, you can try that as well. So that
okay, even for the CFM.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just ask around for the study centers within Lagos and Ibadan. If there's any of them that have virtual lectures, I think you can leverage on that too. So that beyond just studying on your own, you also have somebody who you can reach out to. That's your
Okay.
Put you through in areas that you are struggling to understand.
Okay.
But I've realized that people that have background in finance or engineering, they tend to fare better self-studying for CFM, but then they struggle with CG and CS. Okay, so if you don't have foundational knowledge in finance, it may be a little bit of a struggle if you are doing self-study. But if you do, maybe you're someone who is good with numbers, fine. But if you're not, I would suggest that, if not for anything, for access to a tutor that you can easily reach out to explain some concepts that you don't understand while you're self-studying. And then you also have that community as well, where you have colleagues that you can say, XYZ, what additional materials are you reading, and so on and so forth. Because in the student community, they're always sharing one thing or the other that could be of benefit from you.
Yes.
So just locating yourself in that community also gives you leverage to know what you should know before you get to the exam hall.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if we have anybody wants to speak before I.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you so much,
Neil.
Celine. I don't know what went wrong. I started with a big heart. I started with much confidence.
I can't hear you, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can
you hear me
speak
now?
closer to your device.
Yes. Can you hear me now clearly?
Yes, yes, better.
Yes. I started with great strength in me to pass this exam as I scheduled them out. I took the lecture for 3 days. I was well grounded in all the curriculum, the syllabus, from lecture 1 to lecture 12. I was even, helping other people in the student community. But lo and behold, when the results came out last week, I saw my results as being flunked. I was torn. Even student committee were surprised that I banked the result. But it doesn't deter me. It doesn't deter me. I started out with CPA, corporate public admin exam. I don't know if you are aware of that. Part of ICSAN before they piece them together. So I dreaded quantitative techniques. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you faintly.
Yes. Oh, I'm using hands-free. Maybe I'll move it.
Yes, remove the hands-free and speak directly to your device.
Moment. Can you hear me now?
Okay, keep speaking.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
No, I can't hear you. It's faint. But I think I heard a little bit of what you were explaining, that you had been in a lecture center, you had been in a community, but then when you wrote the exams, you were surprised that the corporate governance didn't come out fine. I had a bit of that. So, but what I would suggest is, I've realized that quite a number of people that have this challenge. What I always recommend is, you can reach out to the education units and request for what is called the marking scheme. Because what I've noticed is quite a number of people have the foundational knowledge of the concepts, especially corporate governance. Corporate governance is quite interesting, okay? The truth is, when you are given a particular question, there's a marking scheme and a standard that the examiners expect a candidate to respond, because they are guided by the marking scheme. If you are not answering those questions in line with what is provided in the marking scheme, it is possible for the person to fail that question, even though they know everything about the question. So I'll give you a typical example. If in a question, they're asking you to send a memo, for instance, to the board of, let's say, Adama PLC. You have new board members, and you're supposed to send a memo advising the board on certain financing decisions. What did the question say? Send a memo. So most people will start responding to that question with a very long essay about all the things they feel they know about financing decision. But the structure of that question, based on the marking scheme, is that your answer should be in the format of a memo. This is an example. So you start by stating, writing the structure of a memo, internal memo, Adama PLC, from your name as company secretary to date XYZ. That structure alone can give you 5 marks. Why? Because the exam is examining you as a practitioner in the field. So why I'm suggesting that you should request for the marking scheme. It's not, before now, it used to be published and sold to students, but at 2016, they stopped officially publishing it. But I've heard that it's available on request, depending on how close you are to the individuals at the secretariat. Once you have that marking scheme, you'll be better guided on how to answer questions. So once you have that guidance, when you enter the exam hall, you know, you would have a feel of what the examiners expect you to write in response to particular questions. So you're not just writing everything you know about a question, but you are responding the way you are expected to respond. Okay, so that's what I would recommend in this case. You appear, from what you have said, you understand it, you feel that you knew everything about a question, you have you've done everything that needs to be done, but you were still surprised that the outcome of the exam was not favorable. What I would suggest is you'd have to ensure that you have an understanding of the examiner's expectation per question, and the marking scheme is your guide. So once you have the marking scheme, you're able to situate yourself in the mind of the examiner. What does the examiner expect that the way I should answer this question? That will give you a hint, so that you're not just writing everything you know. Because I always tell people, if a question has 2 marks, if you write 5 pages, you can only get 2 marks for that question. So some people will feel that I wrote. If you write 3 pages. If that question is just 5 marks, they will read what they can read and they will only allot 5 marks. So if you look
all of that I know.
Yes, sir.
All of that I took into consideration.
Yes.
All of that I did. I crossed all my T's and dot all my I's. Though it's not a discouragement in any way. I'm a dogged person. I'm a dogged person, despite my age. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. I'm doing this exam for retirement.
Okay.
Do you understand? To retire to the village, to have a say in the village, and to teach, perhaps, young ones. I'm almost in my 6th level. Do you understand? So I know what I'm talking about. Yes. I will be CS.
Yes, sir.
So I'm now re-strategizing.
Yes.
I am so delighted with the knowledge you gave this evening.
Yes, sir.
And which I will, further, a zero in on.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand me? So I saw underneath the result that the result could not be challenged via correspondence. So because of this, I've jettisoned the idea of challenging it, but I will rewrite it again June.
Yes.
I'm rewriting the CS June alongside with CS.
Okay.
CG and CS. Okay. And I've started since the beginning of this week.
Yes, sir. That's
and I study 2 hours, even beyond 2 hours every day.
Good.
At my leisure, I'm with my study notes and all of that. For Kwemiko that spoke, she can get across to the secretariat in Lagos. There are virtual classes for most of these. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Celine.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. I don't think we have any other comments, so I'm just going to bring the session to a close now, so that we can go on and spend the rest of our Saturday evening on other activities. So thank you so much for finding time to come. The recording would be available. I will send it to the Telegram platform just in case you want to listen to it again. And those who weren't able to attend, they can also interact with the video. Thank you for coming. Thank you for making your comments. And I'm trusting that by 2024 December, would be able to be at the point where the things we have envisioned, it will be our reality by God's grace. All right, thank you.
Amen. Thank you. I will revert to you by
Thank you
December.
so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you so much. Many thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.